I've received a really interesting story from Victor about Bernie Sanders. And we've talked about Bernie Sanders being widely ignored by corporate media. We've talked about Bernie Sanders drawing huge crowds, surging in the polls, doing really well as far as fundraising goes. But he still is trailing Hillary Clinton. And one of the sort of underlying stories in the Bernie Sanders campaign that isn't getting that much attention is that Bernie Sanders is really not doing too well with minority voters. Bernie Sanders is doing really well within the Democratic Party with white voters, but the non-white voters are not that thrilled with Bernie Sanders. I'll give you the numbers and then we'll talk about maybe what's going on. There's a new Washington Post ABC News survey. 56% of white Democrats back Clinton and 14% support Sanders. Among non-white Democrats, Hillary Clinton has 72% support, which is about 16 points higher than among white Democrats, whereas Bernie Sanders has only 5% non-white Democratic support, 9 percentage points fewer than from white Democrats. So the numbers seem to suggest this is a real thing, Lewis.
Yeah, of course. It seems like it's a real thing.
Wall Street Journal NBC News polling shows that 68% of non-white Democrats say Hillary Clinton doesn't even need a primary challenger, while the majority of white Democrats want her to face other candidates. And among white Democrats, 56% say Hillary Clinton will bring real change, compared to a whopping 81% of non-white Democrats who really think Hillary Clinton will bring real change. So there's a few different things that could be going on here. Number one, it may just be that Hillary Clinton is a known entity. Her connection to Bill Clinton and her work as senator in New York and Secretary of State simply has her more on the radar of non-white voters. This is a possibility, although we would need to explain why it is that non-white voters disproportionately have an awareness of Hillary Clinton relative to Bernie Sanders. The other issue may be that Bernie Sanders has not actually been very vocal about the fact that, hey, he has a 93% rating on civil rights from the ACLU. Bernie Sanders is focusing on so many issues that disproportionately impact minority communities, including the wealth gap, including being on the receiving end of the destruction of our environment. And there are so many issues where Bernie Sanders may not be couching the discussion with regard to non-white voters, and he could be, and maybe it's a matter of waiting until we get to the debates for that to happen. I don't honestly know what is behind these numbers.
My guess would be it would be the first thing you said, that Hillary is just a known entity, and Bernie Sanders has been hiding away. I shouldn't say hiding away, but in the Northeast for quite some time, and I think a lot of white people don't know who Bernie Sanders is.
We need to remember, though, that he is going to, at some point, need to really get on the radar of minority voters if he hopes to win, because more than 40% of the people who voted for President Obama in 2012 were ethnic minorities in some way, shape, or form, and black voters are sometimes the majority in Democratic primaries in southern states. So that is going to be, he's going to need to address this at some point. The question is, will merely debating and getting out there be enough to address it? I don't know the answer.
Hard to say. I hope he's got some great people running his campaign, but the debates are going to be huge, no doubt about that.
Let's take a break. Send us your thoughts on this to our Twitter account, twitter.com/David Pakman Show.